Welcome to this explainer. Today we're totally deconstructing that invisible, highly engineered system that drives your everyday purchasing decisions. If your shopping habits ever feel like they kind of have a mind of their own, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to look at exactly how modern marketing guides your attention, shapes your perception, and ultimately opens your wallet.
We've all been there. You open a shopping app or walk into a store with a strictly logical mission, right? Buy one specific item. A black t-shirt, a bottle of shampoo. Fast forward 20 minutes and you're checking out with a full cart of things you never intended to buy. So how exactly does this happen?
Well, it's definitely not a coincidence. It's a system. Let's reframe this universal experience for a second. When you end up with a cart full of unplanned items, it's not a personal failure of self-control. You are actually interacting with a massively sophisticated machine meticulously built to do exactly this. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the accidental shopper, move into emotion, scarcity, and FOMO, then tackle social proof and discounts, followed by familiarity and targeted ads, and finally wrap up with reclaiming your choices.
All right, part 1, the accidental shopper.
Moving right along to part 2, emotion, scarcity, and FOMO. You see, marketing really operates by creating these incredibly deep emotional connections. Advertisements intentionally link everyday products with our core human desires, things like happiness, success, love, or confidence. They aren't just selling you the tech specs of a smartphone or the fabric of a shoe, they're selling the feeling of status or capability that supposedly comes along with it. And it works because it intentionally distracts you from actually evaluating the practical utility of the product itself. And this emotional manipulation feeds right into FOMO, the fear of missing out. You see this everywhere in your adult shopping life. Think about those limited-time offer banners or a flashing red, "Only 2 left in stock." That is completely manufactured urgency. By triggering that low-level anxiety of missing a great deal, the system deliberately shuts down the logical, calculating part of your brain and pushes you straight into an immediate reactive purchase.
Which brings us to part 3, social proof and discounts.
Social proof plays an absolutely massive role in consumer behavior. When we see a celebrity, an influencer, or just thousands of 5-star reviews on a product page, our brains take a massive psychological shortcut. We just automatically assume the product holds value simply because the crowd validates it. It gives us this instant sense of trust, and honestly, it completely strips away our natural skepticism.
Then we're hit with the ultimate rationalization tool, the illusion of saving. Sales, coupons, buy one get one offers, these are incredibly powerful because they literally trick your brain into feeling like it's achieving a financial win. But here's the reality check. You aren't saving $50 if you just spent $50 you never originally planned to part with. Even so, the retail system makes it feel exactly like a victory.
All right, on to part 4, familiarity and targeted ads.
Brand familiarity heavily influences our decisions. Repeated advertisements just make a brand feel familiar, and to the human brain, familiarity equals trustworthiness. It's wild, but this mental shortcut subtly increases the chances you'll choose that specific brand over an unknown alternative, usually without ever bothering to properly compare their actual value or price. Basically, the system heavily favors whichever company has the budget to consistently appear on your screen.
And targeted advertising? Well, that takes this whole familiarity concept and puts it on steroids. Online platforms track your browsing behavior and learn exactly what you like. Then, they serve you ads that perfectly match your immediate interests. Suddenly, an impulse buy feels incredibly relevant. You might just be scrolling on a Tuesday afternoon, and boom, there it is, the exact item you were just researching yesterday, appearing right at the perfect moment to strike.
Finally, let's hit part 5, reclaiming your choices.
There's a great saying that marketing does not force decisions, it shapes perception. And this is the critical realization we need to take away today. The influence of modern retail is incredibly subtle. Nobody is actually forcing you to click checkout. You still make the final choice, but your attention and your perception of value are being heavily and purposefully guided by the environment around you.
So this brings us to a really crucial pivot, separating emotional influence from a real need. Without being aware of the patterns we've discussed, it's way too easy to confuse the two. The system is engineered to blur that line so completely that a sudden emotional impulse feels identical to a rational, practical necessity.
Let's rapidly recap the 6 specific mechanisms we've just uncovered in this modern marketing machine.
Number 1, emotional connection, selling feelings over function. Number 2, scarcity and urgency, creating that intense FOMO. Number 3, social proof, using the crowd to validate the choice. Number 4, discounts, the illusion of saving. Number 5, brand familiarity, building unearned trust through repetition. And number 6, targeted advertising, striking when you are most vulnerable based on your digital habits.
But here's the ultimate resolution to all of this. Once you understand these 6 mechanisms, you start noticing them absolutely everywhere. You spot the artificial countdown timer, you recognize the targeted ad, and that simple awareness creates something incredibly powerful. A pause. Just a split second of clarity.
That tiny pause equals clearer decisions. This split second of clarity is the exact tool required to break the cycle of automatic, system-driven impulse buying. Instead of being swept up in manufactured urgency, you take a breath, you recognize the tactic for what it is, and you make a clear, conscious decision about whether you actually need the item.
The modern retail system is brilliant, it is efficient, and it is running 24/7. But now you have the blueprint. So I have to ask, next time you're scrolling and you feel that sudden, undeniable urge to quick buy on something you didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago, will you take the pause? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep staying curious out there.